Love is in the air.
Love is in the air.
Yeah, I mean,
everywhere I look around.
Keep it running. Yeah, I know. You should have sang that when you emceed the old Valentine's dinner. You know.
Yeah.
Should have just started busting out in some romantic love song.
Well, Tim and I keep having this plan of doing something like a gong show where you sing. Because like people don't want to hear all of a song, but they want to hear a little bit of a song. So we could give them a little bit of a song by like one of us hitting a gong in the middle of it or something. But yeah, Valentine's I mean, maybe some people missed it. They could have missed Valentine's.
And if you did, Michael, I can help you out. I meant to do more, provided zero prep until just now, but I think we're making it happen. I was thinking maybe we could talk about some, good Christian Bible-based pickup lines.
Yeah, like maybe I don't know, like your neck is like the neck of a gazelle or something like that.
Just straight Song of Solomon. Just quote some Song of Solomon. That's good. Here's a couple I'll throw your way. Been reading my Bible. Been reading the book of Numbers recently. Yeah, but I didn't see yours. Can I get yours? Huh?
Yeah, no, that's good.
It's pretty good.
That's good.
I don't know if this is not really a pickup line, but I saw a mug one time. I was like, I need to get this for Leanne because I think it'd be hilarious. And it says, "You don't deserve me at my Proverbs 31 if you can't handle me at my Judges 4."
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
it's pretty good. The whole gamut.
That's good.
Gamut of emotions. If I walk around you 7 times, will you fall for me like Jericho?
That's good. That's good.
My kids would get that one. That's like right up there. Allie, I'm no Joseph. Maybe you're Joseph. Can you help me interpret the dreams I've been having about you?
Oh yeah, that's not creepy at all.
Yeah. Use at your own risk.
Yeah. I've heard one that was like, "Did you fall from the sky? Because you look like an angel to me."
This one's straight out of the Bible too. This is great. Is your name Faith? Because you're the substance of things I hope for. That's pretty good.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Man. I'll see if I can get. There's one more I saw in here that I was like, oh man, this is good. If I can find, there's something about grace and being irresistible. Same kind of concept, Good Calvinist joke somewhere in there.
Is your name Grace because I find you irresistible? That's probably what it is.
I think that's right.
Like no, and she was like, no. I'm just prevenient grace. Irresistible grace is over there.
Dude, if someone that'd be great. Just keep it the response.
Yeah.
That would be really good. I think those are some pretty good ones.
Well, they all have to do about love.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that our passage today is love one another. Love one another. Out of the end of Romans 13. So why don't we take that to the next level?
From the hearts of the Low Country in South Carolina.
It's the Take Two podcast, where we take theology to the next level.
We're getting close. We're getting towards the end of Romans, not close to the end, but it's like you can kind of see it.
You can see the tunnel, and the lights there. Is that the end, or is that the train coming towards us? We don't know. Yeah.
But we're not closing out chapter 13, but we're getting almost. We're getting towards the end of chapter 13. Yeah. This is sermon 38, maybe.
I think it's 38. That was my rough estimation. 38 or 39.
Wow.
I had to go back. Maybe I'll flash. Like the last time you asked me this question, I flashed on YouTube what the number was. So for the YouTube followers, you'll see. I'll flash what the number is.
Boom, get it up there.
Yeah.
Great. You mentioned it in the open. Love one another, and Pastor Joel preached this the Sunday before Valentine's Day. Yeah. So you got to talk about St. Valentine.
Yeah, and St. Valentine is obviously associated with love. My question to you is, have you listened? My guess is the answer is no, and that's okay. But have you listened to the Adventures in Odyssey on St. Valentine?
Not recently.
No.
I've listened to a lot of as a long time ago.
Okay. So but you don't remember it?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, they dramatize St. Valentine, and they blend together the two stories that Joel tells here, because Joel was saying, we don't really know exactly. There's two different stories that kind of surround him, and we don't think that they are the same one, so we don't know which Valentine we are. But there was one who is a priest, and I don't even know what this Caesar or general was thinking, but he thought it was a good idea to outlaw marriage.
Seems weird.
Because that would make your soldiers, more dedicated to fighting. Like if you don't have to have a family, then you just be all in the fighting. But to me, it's kind of the opposite because if you have marriages, you have something worth fighting for. You have families worth fighting for. And so there's this priest, Valentine, who refused to give in to that and, continued to marry. And then this is the Adventures in Odyssey blends these together. That then there's the Valentine that gets put in prison in Rome, and he falls in love and he's broke out and some stuff like that. So maybe those are all the same story. I don't know, but yeah.
And what happened to Saint Valentine?
Well, I think he was martyred, probably.
Yeah.
Killed for his love.
So here's some candy.
So I guess it relates to this idea of we should be loving one another.
I love it. Well, should we read verses 8 through 12 of chapter 13? I'll go ahead and read that for us. Paul writes, "Owe nothing to anyone except to love one another. For he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. For this, you shall not commit adultery. You shall not murder. You shall not steal. You shall not covet. If there's any other commandment, it is summed up in this saying, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. Do this, knowing the time that it is already the hour for you to awaken from sleep. For now, salvation is nearer to us than when we believed. The night is almost gone, and the day is near. Therefore, let us lay aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light."
No, that's good. So we'll take these a little bit as they go. So the first part of verse 8, owe nothing to anyone except to love one another. This is a present imperative command. And, Paul is talking about finances. He's using the imagery of finances. And I think that he's not telling you anything bad with finances, but I don't think finances are his main object here. He's really he's using the idea of just like you shouldn't owe anything to anyone in your financial situation, don't owe anything to anyone in your relationship situation.
I feel like someone should call in a Dave Ramsey and be like, I'm in debt. I owe, and he's like, how much debt? And you just start talking about Romans 13. Catch him off guard. See what he has to say about that? Because it'd be like Paul said, oh, nothing except
right, yeah. And he would say you would really never get out of the debt You'll never be able to say you're debt free. That's right.
No debt free scream from this passage because we, like you said, we can never satisfy our debt of love towards each other. Pastor Joel aptly titled this "Love One Another," and then Paul is just going to develop this over and over and over. But I like that he's using the finance theme and then boom, talking all about love.
Right. Second part of verse 8: for he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. And obviously, this is not a way for salvation. Hey, just love your neighbor and you're going to get saved. But if you look at, the 10 Commandments, you see, the first 4 kind of vertical towards God. The last 6 are horizontal toward your neighbor. And what we would say is that all of those last 6 are based on how do you love your neighbor? Well, you don't, lie to him. You don't lie about him. You don't covet his things. You don't steal his things. You don't kill him. All those types of things. Yeah.
Yeah, if you love your neighbor, don't kill your neighbor. That's not a good way of showing. And that's basically where Paul goes in verse 9. He just starts laying them out there. He says, for this, you shall not commit adultery. You shall not murder. You shall not steal. You shall not covet. If there's any other commandment, it's summed up in this. So he's basically outlining them. Okay, if you don't get the gist here, I'm just going to sum it up here. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. I like that. I like when we use terms like fulfillments. Kind of just summarizes that. Man, if you're doing that, all these other things will fall into place.
That's good. And Joel, you may be asking what love is. If you were at our Valentine's banquet, you had gotten a definition of love. Do you remember? Well, you were interviewing. But were you paying? Sometimes as an interviewer, you don't pay as much attention to the answers as the people listening because you're thinking about, there's a lot going on in your mind. But Eddie said love takes initiative, meets real needs, acts sacrificially to meet real needs. I think
that was exactly. That was good. I like that. That was
good. Joel's definition of love is an attitude of the heart that acts in a way that is seeking another person's best. I have some word out of here, so I'm trying to piece together what I typed.
Trying to make it work. I like this definition because, I feel like people just run one way or the other. Love is like a feeling, or love is like only action. And I like that it's like both of these things.
Yeah, I think that's good. The greatest verse of the entire Bible, Galatians 5:6, the end of it would say that love, it's faith working through love. So it's our faith in Christ that does good things that's motivated by our love for him and for others. So Paul is consistent on that.
I love it. And love it's got a lot to do with doing. It's a do command. It's not, and I really appreciated this part of Pastor's sermon where when you don't steal, that's the negative aspect. What's the positive side of it? It means be generous. Give. I like that because I think it's easy to be like, I didn't do that, but like, are you living on the opposite side of that?
Yeah, and he had, so that one, he was saying each command is really if you take it to its fullness, it is the do. So it's not just, I don't murder you, but maybe I give you bread and water if you need it, that type of thing. So
I like that. I think that's a good exercise. Go through the commandments and look at that positive side of it. That is good. I like that a lot. Took a little detour. I can see you flipping some Bible pages.
I have it written down here, but I don't remember what the.
It's a surprise. I cannot wait. It's like see what's going to happen. So Michael is turning to Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 28. I'm so excited to see what he's going to read.
And it says, it's what we just read. He who steals must steal no longer, but rather he must labor, performing with his own hands what is good, so that he will have something to share with one who has need. So, yeah.
Great. And then we get to the part of the sermon where Pastor Joel is just going to throw out a question to the audience, and you just hope he doesn't call on you. And he says, Isaac, what's the most popular parable? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, and the thing that I feel a little bit awkward is that if you're looking at the notes, you can see what he intends the answer to be.
I would have got this right because I was glancing ahead at the notes.
Right.
I would have been funny to be like, well, I don't think it's the Good Samaritan. I don't know. What is it? Something like that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that most people think of the Good Samaritan as a parable. So I would be thinking about, I don't know.
Yeah, I was trying to think what I would say.
It's a tough thing not having already been anchored to think of the Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan, I actually preached on the Good Samaritan. Hopefully you went back and listened to that sermon in preparation for this podcast. Did you do that?
I did, but I do remember you preaching on this. I do.
And I think the what fits so well with this passage is that the Good Samaritan, obviously, you should read it and go, man, I need to love people who are my enemies. But that's not really the point of it. The point is, the Good Samaritan is really an answer to a question.
Yeah.
And so this guy comes up to Jesus and he's like, hey, how do you get to heaven? Something like that. We could probably turn to it. It's in Luke. And Luke says, Jesus says, keep the commandments. How do you read them? And he's like, what's the greatest commandment? He says love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus says something like, you've done well. And the guy, and this passage says, seeking to justify himself, he then asked Jesus, who is my neighbor? He wants the list. He wants to know, all right, is it my mom and dad, my siblings, my aunt and my uncle, the people who live right next to me, my kids, my spouse, the rabbi I run into? Are those the people I need to love? And then the answer to the question is the parable of the Good Samaritan. Parable or true story? We don't. It could be a true story,
right?
But what I like to think it was a true story, because I'd like to think of Jesus taking something that happened that people knew and going, "Let me tell you who your neighbor is. Your neighbor is your enemy that you would not even want to, who would have hurt you, who have not helped you, and yet you see him in need and you show true love. Yeah.
Wow. No, that is really, really good, because that's kind of what you think. That I'm glad Pastor went here, because it's like when you think of, love your neighbor, it's like, man, this is a go-to here.
And look, everything I said, we had those verses in the notes. We could have just read them in.
they were in the notes.
But yeah, so you got to hear it summarized from me instead of just reading it. But yeah, Luke 10, go read that and freshen up on the Good Samaritan.
Great. And yeah, Jesus' whole point was that you're not gonna nail this. You can't justify yourself by okay, it's these three people. It's like, nope.
Yeah, we're not going to keep that. So we rely on his grace.
Great. Paul in verse 11,
irresistible grace,
continues on and says, "Do this, knowing the time that it's already the hour for you to awaken from sleep. For now salvation is nearer to us than when we believed. The night is almost gone, and the day is near." And I like this. Paul talks a lot about eschatology and stuff, and it's normally not to be like, hey, are you post-mill? Because I'm all mill. It's most of the time like, hey, pay attention, be vigilant. Like we've got ends coming. Let's be ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when I was a kid, I was really concerned about the judgment that we would see. And I think we've talked about this maybe even a little bit, but I don't think, it's clear that the judgment that unbelievers face and what they go through is going to be different than the judgment that believers go through. I think believers, our sins are forgiven. I don't think that it's going to be, and if it were, what do you do? Like that's it's a long,
man.
We got eternity, but every second that you're not loving the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, that's a sin at some level.
I know we have talked about this before. I just hate that it's like just such a shameful tactic. Everyone's going to be, it's like everyone's watching your life on the screen. You're going to see everything. Yeah. And it's like, I feel like that's not the tenor of the.
Right. I don't think it's the tenor. And if it would be, it would be like, okay, here's God's grace.
It'd be a positive. You. It's like, it wouldn't be, exactly.
Right. But I think maybe the works that taking off Paul and what Joel's going to reference here below, I think what happens is maybe the good things we do are kind of judged. Because Paul talks about, were you building with, these materials or these materials? And the only thing I can think of, and maybe you have thought on this, sorry, I got a little tickle in my throat, is that our motivations for why we did the good work.
Stuff, yeah, I could see that.
Maybe not like maybe it is the height of the good work, the quantity and the quality. I don't know. I don't think it's just a straight calculus.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, let's read 1 Corinthians 3:10 through 15. Paul, also writing this letter, says, "According to the grace which was of God, which was given to me, like a wise master builder, I laid a foundation, and another is building on it. But each man must be careful how he builds on it. For no man can lay a foundation other than the one which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, if any man builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each man's work will become evident, for the day will show it, because it's to be revealed with fire. And the fire itself will test the quality of each man's work. If any man's work which he has built on it remains, he will receive a reward. If any man's work is burned up, he will suffer loss. But he himself will be saved, yet so as through fire." Clearly a passage on purgatory.
Yeah. Just, good red herring there. Yeah. But this is the passage that that would be a proof text for purgatory for Roman Catholics. But so I think what we see here is Paul laid a foundation of Christ to these people, and other people are going to build on it. And how they build matters. Yeah. And not a physical fire, but we have this figurative language that says it's going to go through some type of judgment. That would have been especially to people who saw blacksmiths or any type of right. You're putting something in the crucible, and the bad stuff you scrape off and you refine it. So it's going to go through a fire, and the things of value are going to pass through that fire, but the dross, the wood, hay, stubble is going to burn up. And so, this is motivation for how we build into the kingdom. We should build well. We shouldn't do things halfway.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Because, and I like some of these notes in here that you see the materials, their value decreasing. There's some patterns to this, but I think you're right. It's it's not like say a prayer and then we're good. We're coasting, and especially where we're at in Romans, it's like thing after thing after thing after thing. How do we love others? How do we love God? There's a lot of things that we can be doing. And ultimately, this passage, it points to sanctification. How are we growing? How is Christ working in us to change us and transform us more into the image of him? After this, we're going to 2 Corinthians.
Yeah, it's another passage.
You want to read verses 6 through 10 of chapter 5?
Sure. It says, therefore, being always of good courage, and knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord, for we walk by faith, not by sight. We are of good courage, I say, and prefer rather to be absent from the body and to be at home with the Lord. Therefore, we also have as our ambition, whether at home or absent, to be pleasing to him. For, and here's kind of the key verses, we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may be recompensed for his deeds in the body according to what he has done, whether good or bad.
Wow. Yeah. Just kind of says in a little bit different way there's going to be some accounting at the end. So be ready. We all will appear before the judgment seat of Christ. And then, looking at all of that discourse, Matthew 24 and 25, there are a lot of details to parse out that we could spend a lot of time. We probably have spent some time talking about it.
Talked about it, yeah.
But again, what's the overall message that what's the point he's trying to make?
Especially as you move into the end, which you would think he'd put the most important things at the end.
Yeah.
Be ready. Be on the alert. Be vigilant. You're not going to necessarily know exactly when I'm coming back, so be ready. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? I think how you understand doctrine might answer that differently, but I think if you are about his work, you are helping to glorify God by bringing sinners to Christ, saints to Christ likeness among all nations, then
that's funny.
I think you're going to be about that work. And one of the last parables there, maybe this is his most famous parable, the one of the talents. The guy just buried it in the ground. And he's like, you should at least put it in the bank, do the least that you could do, but you didn't even do that. Yeah,
what I like that Pastor Joel did is he's kind of showing us. It's not one obscure passage mentioned this, but there's passages and it's like, man, you just need to be working now, not for your salvation, but for what you do does matter, does counts. And then we get to Kairos here.
Right.
He's like, he's been to Kairos. I was like, oh, I thought he meant the restaurant. I was like, oh, I love that place.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, Isaac Bryant did too. He was saying the same thing. He was like, I forgot about
I thought it was a
Kairos.
school. Yeah, I was thinking, man, me and Leanne, we get there like once a month or order out from there because it's like you get a lot of food.
There. Where is it?
What are we doing, Michael? You got to go there. It's so good. You get a lot of food for a pretty good price. It's like if you like the Mediterranean,
I do,
and I feel healthy eating it.
You get it's got like feta cheese and olives and onions and
and you can get these healthiest parts. You can get fries with feta fries. Not healthy, but it's like so good. They're so good.
Feta fries?
Oh, feta fries. They're so good.
All right.
Do it. So they have one.
Do you have to love feta? Because I like feta a little bit.
Yeah.
But I can be overwhelmed. But if you put too much on there, I'm like,
just give this place a try. I think you'll like
give feta a chance.
But yeah, so I'm glad I wasn't alone because I was like, then I was like, oh, it's only like homeschoolers or that are raising their hands. So I feel out of place.
What's going on?
Yeah.
So real quickly, the point here is the term that Paul uses for time here is not chronos, which is kind of like the normal term for time, but it's this other term for time, kairos. And apparently there's this Greek god, Kairos.
Dude, he looks awesome.
Yeah, he looked ripped, among other things. He had some weird features. I don't remember all of it.
His hair was super long in the front.
Yeah.
He was bald. And then...
I mean, whenever there's someone who has some weird hair pattern because they're bald, I'm for it. I want to say
honestly,
that's good.
People should bring the Kairos. You can get a Caesar cut. Get the Kairos cut.
Yeah. But really, the image was that he is basically this ephemeral evaporating of time. Like you have this opportunity, and it's moving away, and once it's by, you can't seize it, which was why his hair was cut in the back. Because he was saying, like, no man would seize me from behind. Like you have to kind of take me from the front, or you're not going to see me. And so Paul is using this imagery to say that we have these opportunities that we need to lay hold of. So know the time that you live in and make the most of those opportunities.
Yeah, Pastor made this connection that the sons of Issachar were men who understood the times. You find that in 1 Chronicles 12:32, with the knowledge of what Israel should do. And so, he mentioned there's like a group in the Navigators or something, like the Issachar group or something, but just in line with this. And then he handed out a round to it.
Yeah. Have you seen these before?
I had not seen it before, but I immediately, like when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's funny. I was like, oh, do you know what'd be funny if it was like a round to it? I didn't know about it, but I was like, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
I had this magic/joke book growing up, and it suggested making these and handing them out. So I had been, these have been familiar to me for a long time. But yeah, obviously the point is you have your round to it now, so get to work. You don't have to wait to get around to it. There you go.
That's so good. Some questions for application. Question 1, do you think of a coming judgment of your life? Meditate on passages like 1 Corinthians 3 and 2 Corinthians 5. Next application, let's think about your spiritual gifting. How are you engaged with yours? I mean, I think these things naturally go together. Paul's talking about at the same time. Our gifting is for the purpose of loving and serving others so that the church body more fully reflects the glory of Christ.
Next one, are you nursing some hurt that is keeping you on the sidelines? Or maybe it's something else that's keeping you on the sidelines. What do you need to do to move past it? One after that, do you have a neighbor or a coworker or someone else in your life that needs your love? Are you aware of a specific need that you can meet? If so, go meet it.
Last one, write on your round to it how your faith will express itself in love. Some good application. Next week, we're closing out Romans 13. So get ready. But that's all I have this morning. You got anything, Michael?
That's all I got.
All right. That's our take. Thanks for listening to Take 2. Find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube for those who want to watch our video cast.